All right. Looks like we are live. Welcome, everyone, to our book study group for Monday, the 22nd of November, 2021, Thanksgiving week here in the United States. We are about to start our next book. Well, we did start it. Hopefully, you've been reading. But Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. Yeah, 1963, I believe. Which is interesting to me because I know there's a lot of PDFs flying around on the web, people handing out the book for free. I gave everyone a Kindle link. You can get it for $1, but yeah, should still be under copyright. It's less than 70 years old. So this is a modern book, Bob. We're going modern style on us today, mid 1900s. Nothing ancient about this one. Yeah. So really good stuff. I do see that we have Bob, Missy, Daisy's here, Ivier, Lindsay, Stuart, and Virginia all here with us to enjoy the forward and the first 4 chapters, which I'll just give you my take on this because I've read it several times. And as I mentioned to many of you, this is a book that was recommended to me years ago by none other than Bob Proctor. And you know what? We're just pointing at it's the same topic that's been brought up in many other books that we've reviewed. As a Man Thinketh, Science of Getting Rich, Think and Grow Rich, and several others that kind of point to the same thing. But just having read these first 4 chapters again, and of course, the foreword where he makes us some pretty bold promises about what can come, to the reader as a result of really taking this and applying it. The main takeaway that I got from all of this so far is kind of like, well, it was the title of the second to last chapter in my book, which is You Are the Answer. That was the title of the second to last chapter. You are the answer, right? So here we have all these resources, things that we're working with in life, objectively and subjectively. Here's these tools, right, outwardly that we can use to build stuff, to create businesses and lifestyle and whatever. And then, internally, we've got what I would argue and what the author argues is the greatest resource of all. And yet, can we, did we get the instruction manual? How many of us got the instruction manual when we showed up? And as Earl Nightingale said, this is standard issue at birth, right? The mind is often not used because we value what we pay for. And this was given to you freely at birth. Do what you will. And I have found for much of my life, I've been like, perched at the wheel, but folding my arms and letting the machine run itself into the ditch, right? Again, to quote Earl Nightingale from his classic recording, The Strangest Secret, right? So here we have this tremendous power, arguably, well, I don't know if you want to argue it, but more powerful than all the stuff outwardly that we look at, all the things that we a lot of times, again, I'll speak for myself, attempt to use, things to solve the problems that other things are involved with. In other words, trying to have an effect with effects. But when cause is right here, neglecting it because I can't see it or I didn't get the instruction manual or whatever my justifications are. Now, we can go really deep with this stuff. And I think this book, just at least in the first 4 chapters that hopefully you all read, doesn't go too deep, right? You can get into like synaptic connections and you can get into a lot of the science behind the stuff, but he does offer us something which I think is workable. And that is an idea that if we just have faith, if we just understand that, no, you don't have the instruction manual and you can't account for all this. So if you need a spreadsheet or something, please stop. Right. But if you could just start using auto-suggestion, right, that which we tell ourselves about ourselves all day long, okay, and habitually get into a state of faith with this, it's got to work. It's got to work. And then, yeah, we could say, oh, well, it was the relics. Oh, the bones of the saint. You guys read the splinter of wood that the kid took off the ground and had it mounted in a ring, and then the father was healed because it was supposedly the wood of the cross, right? And so okay, so where is the answer? You are the answer. I just got to remember that. I just got to keep remembering that. I keep forgetting. Anyway, floor is open. please come on out. Let's hear what thinks you. I know Bob's definitely going to have some ideas on this, as well as Stuart. By the way, is this your first time through? Has anyone never read this book before? I don't see any hands up. Bob, first time. Okay. Yeah. Virginia. Okay. Very good. So, yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this first 4 chapters. Let me go ahead and pull up my book so I know what first 4 chapters the titles were, because I don't remember the titles. I just read the book. Crap. Where's the stuff? Here's the stuff. All right. So we got the forward, and then which is subtitled, I guess, How This Book Can Work Miracles in Your Life. So right there, he's making a big promise. Chapter 1, The Treasure House Within You. Chapter 2, How Your Mind Works. And again, he gave us kind of a cursory, thoughts on that. Number 3, The Miracle Working Power of Your Subconscious. Number 4, Mental Healings in Ancient Times. And the next week, we'll be covering the next 4 chapters. Who's got some thoughts on this? Bob and Missy.
Well, I love Joseph Murphy, and I tried to do this 20 years ago, suffering from the same condition. And I did. I was in much better mental state then. I couldn't get it to work, but I was just talking to Bob before, and what I wanted then was just to not be sick, I wanted to not have this thing anymore. I didn't have, I did believe, but there was a part of me that was not, my conscious mind was not sure of what I really wanted. Okay, so then if you're not sick, then what? What was I going to do then? But now, my life, this, meeting you, coming to this group, and the general session and the other session that we have at 1:00 has given me this focus and purpose. I mean, 20 years ago, I had a commode next to my bed. I couldn't move, and I had last rites, and I'm battling again, but it's because of past thoughts. I understand that. And what could be a physical tendency maybe turned into a crippling condition, which many people have. It's, there's a diagnosis. But I absolutely know that this is ending its time in my life, because I thanked it today. I thanked it all day. But please, whatever reason I needed you, it's no longer. So whatever time you need to go out, just take your time, but please go. And I do have faith that it's going to go. I wish it would be instantaneous, so I could say, "Oh, healed." But it took a while to come in, so maybe it's going to take a while to come out. But I just bless this man and Neville Goddard, and I think I'm going to have the proper application this time. So
beautiful.
Glad we're doing it.
You know what, Missy? That's I know you've acknowledged multiple times your healing and your transformation that you're consciously acknowledging, and just by you doing that, that's autosuggestion that counts. But also, what we may or may not overlook is the fact that you are choosing an environment that is conducive to your transformation. Right. Yeah. So in fact, we talked about this on general session today, right? It was the idea of, purpose, right? And why, coupled with methods, what, how, right? In the environment where that stuff can live. Okay. Where that's validated. And so I don't know that you need a relic or something. I suppose I could send you, some bones of the saint. I don't know. Would that make it, would that expedite? Right?
I have Lord's water.
You got the relics. Okay. Would that expedite the, I don't know. Right. I got, I remember a friend came back from Lord, is it Lord or Lourdes? How do you pronounce the town in France? Right.
Lourdes.
Yeah.
Lourdes.
Right. Okay. And they brought me a vial of water, the holy water. Right. And, I threw some on my face or whatever. And here I am. I don't know what happened. I'm not quite sure, but I still have it. I think I still have some of it.
They sprinkled me with it. when I was like not 8 and had my first trachea and was dying. They brought water from Our Lady of Lourdes and
Okay.
did it. And I lived
Still
amazing.
here. You're not 8 years old
Yeah.
anymore. Something worked, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
But
There's
yeah, I
that.
have the bottle somewhere actually also.
Yeah. Good times. But I think to place our faith in worldly things is to look amiss, I think. Okay. So here's stuff. Here's what I would call effect. Effects don't create effects. Causes create effects. Okay. So to look outward, I think, is to look amiss. So I don't know if we need relics or anything. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about this. But look, the people who touched the cloth or whatever, we could say holy doorknob, I suppose. And if people really like, that was it, they had faith in that. All right. Lindsay, what do you think? Come on out here, my friend.
Well, sorry, I had to my schedule an appointment, so I missed the last part of that. But I was going to
We're
say,
talking about sacred doorknobs.
well, that's okay.
Right.
I was going to say I am poised, serene, confident, and calm. So sacred doorknobs. Let's see. Well, you got. I was going to the auto suggestion on through when they said that. I was like, that goes back to pretty much every book that we have went through is auto suggestion. What are you telling yourself? I think that I'm so short because the amount of times I've fallen on my face, it would be a disaster if I was like 5'11" or, even 5'5", so it's cool. I'm down with that. But I fall up and I just get right back up. I used to not do that, but now I'm serene, calm, confident, and going for it. I don't know, but I love this book. This book always opens something new. And I love what you said, Missy, about the first part I heard with your healing and all. I think that's amazing. But it's just, and I love it how he said, stop yourself if you're going to say something negative and just stop right there and change it. Because I have seen myself doing that.
Right.
I know that's way off what y'all were talking about. I'm sorry.
No, this is beautiful. So here's the consideration then, is that if you're stopping yourself mid-sentence, right? Like the example in these first 4 chapters, the one where the woman said, oh, I can't afford that purse or whatever. No, that purse is being delivered, right? I know it is coming to me in right order and what have you. And then the next thing you know, her fiance presented her with that exact purse. Oh, it's so amazing, right? So actually not that amazing when we think about it. How many times have we experienced this kind of stuff? Whether it's, spontaneous delivery, unexpected, at least in terms of our conscious thinking, right? But what did he say in the chapters here, right? The subconscious mind never stops working. In fact, he said it like again and again and again and again and again. So there's a bit of repetition in the book, right? So like, really get this, folks, right? This is working, whether you know it or like it or not. It's working all the time, just like autosuggestion is working all the time. So to relate to Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill said autosuggestion is the keystone in the arch of the entire Think and Grow Rich philosophy. It is the only known method to produce faith. Okay, so if that's what we're after here, okay, what are we telling ourselves about ourselves all day long? And I think it comes right down, Lindsay and everyone, it comes right down to something which I talked about several times, which is projecting, like fast forwarding the videotape and projecting not only what does it look like, in my environment now that I have, produced the result, made the money, had the healing, whatever it is, okay, but also down to emotion, how do I feel? And what are these interactions that I'm having now? Because I spend a lot of time, as a human with other humans. Oh, okay. So now I'm talking to my wife. What conversation are we having? Let me think about this here and see myself having that conversation now that we've, made the money or acquired the property or made the investments or whatever it is we're doing, whatever we're postulating, right? And what is a postulate? Is it a causative idea that doesn't require proof? Okay, so we're postulating this is the outcome. This is the guaranteed future outcome. Okay, great. Let me now, as part of my auto-suggestion, let me role play that in the quiet space, right? Let me role play that and experience it as real as I can. Because look, if the desire is there, if the impulsive thought is there, well, it's already real on some plane. It may not be, physical, touch the stuff yet. Okay. But if we have that faith, which we can induce by autosuggestion, well, then it's got to happen. That's what the author's saying. It's got to happen. So what can I do? What mechanisms, how can I sell that deal? This is a sales pitch now, which sign me up for that. I love a good sales pitch. So here's the pitch. The pitch is you're going to get everything you want. You don't even have to worry about it. So stop worrying, right? You're going to get everything. Okay. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What are the little nuances that go with that? Right. And if you could just take the time and get quiet long enough to sit there and stop looking at appearances, well, then that can be more real for you. And then what's got to happen? Right. Now, that doesn't mean you sit on your ass. Right. And I mean, look, Lindsay, I'll use Lindsay as an example, right? She used her stature to her advantage in, I guess, in the falling on your face. Was that like gymnastics? Was that the falling on your face part?
Well, I mean, just in general, like,
In general?
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I've fallen on my face plenty in gymnastics,
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, but if it's like people are afraid to do something because they're afraid to fail, well,
Right.
I mean, I failed, quote, I didn't fail. I learned from that. But I
Okay.
may have fell flat on my face, but you know what? I bounced right back up and said, okay, that didn't work. Let's just tweak that and go on another, hypothesis and see if that works.
Right.
And
Right,
I've
okay.
found a lot more ways to approach people and rebuttals. And it really does work. And it's like, I'm not worried about what people think. I'm like, okay, so the use of that, well, how about this? And sometimes they can't say no. They're like, well, I mean, it's like a lady told me tonight, she's like, I don't know exactly. I didn't fill anything out. But that I said, she said, my mom may have gotten on my account. I said, no, someone had to put in your name and your information. So, you're not buying, I'm not buying that. But I said it in a nice way. And she said, well, how about we talk? We just scheduled this meeting for tomorrow at 4:00. I said, send my calendar. I'll call you then. So,
Okay. So I thought when you were talking about your physical stature, you were talking about physically falling on your face, but there's
that
more,
too.
you've got other opportunities as well. Okay. So, but the point is that you work with what you got and you find ways to press your advantage with, these things which are, I guess, subjective, right? Is that an advantage or disadvantage? Right. I know that also being someone who's not very tall, 5'6.5". Thank you very much.
Less than half.
There are advantages and disadvantages to that. Well, I press my advantage with some of that stuff, right? So
Right.
interestingly, my torso is that of a taller person, but my legs are not as long,
Yeah, I'm kind of
which
the
is
same
great
thing.
for squatting, by the way. Right?
True.
Oh my
Agreed.
goodness, I could squat some weight. Oh my
Can't
goodness.
say.
Yeah. So yeah, that
Okay.
was my heaviest lift when I was like seriously into, and I still worked out. I did legs just yesterday, but 405 pounds and I'm 170 and I can squat 405. That's like, holy crap. But yeah, what's my range of motion? Right.
Totally get that.
Yeah.
That
Where-
habit.
Where's Ivier? Let's hear from she who shall not sleep. Hi, Ivier.
Hi, John. Hi, everyone. Put my glasses on so I can see. I was listening to Missy talk about, when she wasn't feeling 100%. And that just reminded me of probably when my health was probably at its lowest. And this was maybe 2009, between 2009 and 2011. And it was so bad that the job I had at the time, I almost lost my job because I was hardly ever in the office. And I had a boss from I don't know where, but this woman just on site did not like the look of me, thought I was an upstart, didn't think I deserved the position because I came into the organization at what she said was a fairly high level. And I thought I took a downgrade when I joined because I was like, oh. Anyway, long story. So I was really sick. And I remembered people trying to plant seeds of negativity in my head to say, how are you sure you're going to get better? But the fact that you're only eating 1 spoon of boiled rice, like plain, my diet literally went down to 1 tablespoon of boiled rice. No ketchup, no salt, no butter, no tomato, nothing. It was just plain boiled rice. That was it. No meat, no vegetable. I just couldn't handle anything. I was reacting to everything. And that went on for, gosh, almost 2 years. That was my diet. But every time I went to the consultants, I went to hospital and they did all the tests, all my stats looked better. Why was that? I kept telling myself that if I go into everyone's home, everyone has their color scheme, right? You interior decorate the way you want, right? So if I walked into, say, John's office, you can see there are lots of browns and the plants are green. It's his kind of colors. He functions in that environment. But if you come into my office, I've got caramel and orange and purple, like it's a splash of colors, right? So everyone expresses their personality in their environment. And so you have the right to decorate your space the way that resonates with who you are on the inside. And so I turned around and I said to this one particular person, because this wasn't the first time she'd said this. In fact, she was beginning to get on my nerves, to be honest. And so I turned around and it was a flashbulb moment. I just turned to her and I said, I believe inside of my body is an environment, right? And maybe we're having an overhaul because I've got to redecorate, right? So the colors on the inside, we're having a whitewash right now. And once all the walls are like nice and white again, then we can start adding splashes of color. But it's got to be color that expresses where I'm at. But right now, it's going through the whitewash. So we're sandpapering stuff down, we're cleaning it all out. It's a blank canvas. And you know what? I'm excited for what's to come. What color scheme is going to be on the inside of me? And I added, and I said, even though my diet is just plain boiled rice, I told my doctors this as well. I said, I believe the rice, when it gets inside my body, converts to what my body needs. I kept saying that to myself and to anybody who would listen. And I didn't care what the doctors said, what they knew, what they didn't know, friends, family. That was my automatic response. Because I just pictured that on the inside of my body, whatever my body could cope with clearly was what my body could handle. But I said to my body, even though that was my diet, every time I swallowed the pills, I spoke to those pills and I said to them, you will do no damage in my body. As I swallow you, you are going to rectify what you are created to do. You're not going to do any harm to my insides. I'm not going to be worse. I am going to get better. I mean, every time I had the handful of pills about to swallow, I spoke that. And I imagined my insides kind of like knitting together and coming together and, repairing themselves. This was what I said to myself. And it's amazing that fast forward 18 months, when people saw me, in fact, my doctors actually said, you are a walking miracle. So when this guy started the book saying, this book will perform miracles in your life, I've been through this. My doctors could not, it was beyond science. It just didn't make sense. On the diet, I was, when they saw me 18 months before, I was hunchback. I couldn't stand up straight because I had no energy. Literally, if a little wind blew, I'd fall over. I mean, I'm a size 10 US now. I was probably a size 2 or a 4 then. So you can imagine I was a bag of bones. I rattled as I moved, right? And they were like, how your markers are improving every time we see you, every time we run tests, we don't know. What are you doing? Is there some potion you're taking? Have you changed your diet? I said, my diet is still boiled rice, but you know what? Every time I have that tablespoon, it's converting to what my body needs. And that's what's happening. And I said, you can prescribe any pill you want. Those pills are not going to wreck my insides. They're going to do exactly what they were manufactured to do. And that's that. And that was all I said. The nurses, they'd struggle to find a vein and, they'd poke me several times and I'd go, you know what? Don't do that arm, just do this one. That's the spot. And true as word, they go in there, they get blood. I just thought to myself, no, I have to say to people, I have to be bold enough to say to people, this is what's happening on the inside. Till tomorrow, my consultants do not know what caused the turnaround. But I was just adamant that that was not the end of me, because I still had lots of life to live. I still had stuff I wanted to do. I got my list of objectives, my dreams. I mean, all of that stuff isn't fulfilled yet. I'm not going anywhere. I'm like, no, I still got stuff, people to see, things to do, right? So just listening to Missy brought that back, you know, to memory. And I just thought it's amazing how convinced you have to be and how strong your faith has to be, because it's not just your internal or your subconscious that will play tricks on you, but it's external parties that will try to derail you or knock you off balance. And you need to be so secure in what you're about, what you want, how badly you want it, that the answers come quick. When they try and feed this to you, you go, you know what, I ain't having none of that. This is my counter argument. This is my answer to that. And it was a struggle. I mean, some days I didn't have the energy to say this, but I just say one word: interior decorating. And I do it with like attitude, right? Or I'd go, I'm having an overhaul, like, hey, you know, and I'd walk off. And they'd be like, what does she mean by that? And when I had strength, I'd explain it to them. But in that moment, I'd just say, you know what? Interior decoration is going on and I'm loving it. And I walk off. So I leave them guessing, thinking, has she lost her mind? What's going on there, right? So now they remember and they look at me now and they're amazed. Like, oh my God, you look wonderful. You look healthy. I go, yeah, I told you I would be. I had no doubt. But you have to believe that stuff. And you just, yeah, I don't know. But Missy, you brought that back to, I don't think about that often, but that was just a time in my life. And I just thought, yeah, this stuff works. It does work.
Wow. As you were talking, Vivier, I was reminded of, one of the sub-chapters here, or subparts, the constructive and destructive power of suggestion, which hopefully we all read, right? Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick, because this was, wow, this was really cool to kind of review this. So it says here, some illustrations and comments on heterosuggestion. So that means suggestions from another. So autosuggestion, me talking to me; heterosuggestion, others talking to me. Played a part in a life through man in every period, each and every country in many parts of the world. It is the controlling power in religion. May be used to discipline and control ourselves, can also be used to take control and command over others who don't know the laws of the mind. Okay, one of the most destructive in all response patterns of the mind, resulting in patterns of misery, failure, suffering, sickness, and disaster. So that's what's on the menu. Here's some hors d'oeuvres, right? You'll never amount to anything, right? You're too old now. Watch out, you'll get the virus. Right. Okay. So what's changed here? I mean, this book isn't that old. Okay, but you can do something about it, right? Which is the whole point. You can do something about it. Bob and Missy, you've got some thoughts on this.
Well, I guess you were reading this, John, tonight, expecting me to go off on large flights of theological wisdom that I have accumulated over the years.
Be my guest.
Well, I actually wanted to hold back a little bit because I didn't make it all the way, but I did pick some things up along the way. And it's kind of coincidental. First of all, in the Catholic liturgy this time of year, the passage from St. Mark's Gospel has been part of the liturgy. And that is, whatsoever you pray for believing, it shall be given unto you. And the way that Dr. Murphy, who actually was a priest, wasn't he?
No, he was becoming a priest.
He was becoming a
didn't
priest,
he?
okay. But he ascribes to the subconscious a great deal of the credit, you might say, for people improving their lots in life. He tends to secularize it. Well, for a person who has a deep-seated belief in the personal God, who actually acts with a purpose and does care about his creation, it's a matter of response. Everything we do, whether we realize it or not, is sort of an offering to God. Some is deliberate, some is indeliberate. And God will respond in the way that we expect him to respond. There's actually a sermon I listened to yesterday where the preacher said exactly this, that we tend to make God the way that we make ourselves. So we approach him with a great deal of trepidation and fear because we're expecting to fail. We know our limitations, but God is infinite and he is a father, right? And the greatest joy that a father can experience is the joy that the children get from what he gives them. So he's willing to give you whatever you ask for. The problem is we don't know what to ask for, or we don't know what to ask for in the right way. And there is a lot of theological truth in all of this, right? The subconscious mind is part of our makeup. And Dr. Murphy is absolutely correct. The subconscious mind only reacts to what the conscious mind will feed it. So therefore, if the conscious mind is continually feeding the subconscious with negative thoughts or limited thoughts, and this goes back to Dorothea Brand, you know, we have this pattern of failure, the law of failure that we have ingrained in ourselves. And so as a result, we approach what we want with the idea we'll never get it. We'll never, ever get it. What we have to do, though, in order to exploit this is not only think positively and request boldly, but we should also see whatever is given to us as coming from the hands of a benevolent God. And we don't see the good of things necessarily in the moment. All right. If you will the end, you of necessity will the means to that end. And that resonated with me when you said, you know, you just don't ask and sit on your ass and wait for things to happen. You do something about it. Show you're serious about what you're asking for. Do the stuff. And not only will you acquire the means, you'll acquire the end. More people fail because they give up, because they don't recognize they have the means at their disposal. And like Napoleon Hill wrote, the man who got all the equipment to mine for the gold and gave up 3 feet short. He had everything there. He just didn't have the wherewithal to see it through. So that's my contribution on the first 4 chapters from
Awesome.
what I think are the, you know, Orthodox Christian point of view.
Mhm. He certainly, Bob, thank you. He certainly does, you know, give many, many quotes, you know, along the ideas of pray without ceasing. These things of good report, think on these things, right? When you believe, it shall be done unto you, right? So this is all, he's correlating all that. And I think the part where you may call it, what's the word you used? Sorry, guys, I just kicked a bunch of stuff over on my desk. We're non-religious, right? Secular, right? Was the word you used, right? So where he may seem to go in a secular direction here, I think he's appealing to multiple audiences, right? So here, Christians, Buddhists, you know, Hindus, etc. Why do these principles work? Why does faith a working thing, regardless of, you know, which scripture you read, right? So I think that's where he's going with it.
Without a doubt, that's true.
Mhm.
And just to kind of random thought that left me as I was being eloquent was that you know, we talk about the use of relics or going to shrines and getting things that are supposed to work miracles. Yes, it's true. Even until to this very day, I was telling Missy this. To this very day, people who claim to have had miraculous cures at Lourdes or as a result of using Lourdes water, right? They are scrupulously investigated. And a lot of them are thrown out saying, well, you know, this is auto-suggestion. The notion is you've auto-suggested to yourself that you've got this syndrome or you've got this condition when you never really did have it. Okay. you suggested to yourself, I got a bum leg. So you walked around with a limp for a long time. Then you threw yourself into the pool at Lourdes and you could walk. Well, there was a stronger auto suggestion, you might say, in that instance. I got up, I went to Lourdes, I plunged myself in the water, I've got 2 good legs now, a miracle. Well, point is, you never really did have one bad leg. You had 2 good legs. You just acted as if you had a bad leg for one reason or another. However, there are indeed cases that medical science, physical science cannot explain why the person went in this way, came out that way.
The lady in the book who had a dead optic nerve went to Lourdes. And even after the miracle, she was still had no working optic nerve. And then months later, it was restored.
Right.
And he says you can restore what created you, infinite intelligence equals God, infinite intelligence. What created you can restore you. And I'm doing that right now. I'm working with the law,
Yeah.
which I believe is God.
Raymond Hollywell. Now, we're all saying over the past month and a half, the books we're reading, it's all saying pretty much the same thing. That, we have the power within ourselves to make ourselves what we want. And we don't necessarily need to rely on the good offices of other people to do that.
Well, that's good. Right?
Although you can cripple yourself by listening to other people. I mean, you just threw up on the screen, the people who are the naysayers. You say, you can't do this. Have you taken into account X, Y, Z? What are you going to do about this if this happens? All right. I told Missy just yesterday, sometimes you have to be too dumb to be afraid. You just have to, figure, I'm not going to fail. You just have to be too dumb to be afraid. Just do it.
Just do it. Right. This is something that I think Stuart had commented on back when we were reading Dorothea Brand, and it was the courage of desperation. Right. So now you don't have the luxury of sitting there in endless Q&A and, what will they think? And right. You just do it. So, wow, good stuff. Thank you, Bob and Missy. Awesome. Let's bring Stuart out here for his take on all this subconscious stuff. Where is he? Where did he go? Here he is.
Awesome. Quickly regarding relics, talisman, what we call instilling mental hooks into things, right? Murphy specifically says it's not the thing that we believe in, it's our belief in the thing. I think it was in the 3rd chapter there. And again, that's not disregarding miracles and spiritual healings, but in general, what he was, saying is it's our belief, right? We talked about the placebo effect, the nocebo effect, things like that. I just happen to have my bag of sacred earth from the Santuario de Chimayo, which is here in northern New Mexico. There's a big pilgrimage. People walk for hundreds of miles on Easter week. They leave their homes, a week or 2 before, and thousands of people. And then I want to say on Good Friday or Easter Sunday, they show up at the Santuario. And Virginia had texted me and said that she had been there. And yeah, people show up with, all of their maladies with the hope of being cured. Murphy specifically talks about his own experience curing his own sarcoma and his own illness, right? And of course, many of us, as we come to understand these principles, have applied them to our own efforts in healing ourselves, right? And Missy, you spoke about your experience, Ivia, you spoke about your experience. I know that we all have experiences with that, John. I'm sure with you and Shannon, you guys had your own version of that as well. With myself, I still, lull myself to sleep as I imagine my my vertebrae fusing and healing, and everything, going back into its right place. You can't hear me? Sorry, am I mumbling?
Yeah.
Come a little closer. I was saying that I still lull myself to sleep, envisioning my vertebrae fusing together, and seeing myself on top of the mountain, and bringing up the emotions that all that entails. Going into the book, there's some gems and gold even in the intro, but even the title to me is a nod to ancient mysteries, Hermeticism, Masonry, and things like that, right? And if you didn't know, Murphy was in fact a 32nd degree Mason, but this concept of the master key, right? And you talked about the keystone and the arch and all this kind of stuff. These are all Masonic terms that go supposedly all the way back to King Solomon and the building of the temple in Jerusalem and all this interesting stuff. But the first reference I found was in these books from like the 1700s, in the first Masonic lodges in America that Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, right? I'm sure you've seen pictures of Washington with the apron laying the cornerstone of all the buildings and all this stuff. So these guys, these ancient mysteries, these ancient secrets, right? It's very interesting to see how it gets repurposed over time through these self-help books. But again, 1700s, you had Master Key to Freemasonry, the Master Key in 1766, John Brown in 1798, Master Key through all the degrees. Blavatsky in 1877 hits a Master Key to the mysteries. The Kabbalion is all about, over and over and over again, talks about the Master Key to open the doors to occult knowledge. Then, John, you and I have talked about the Master Key system from 1916. And then, of course, our friend Napoleon Hill drops the Master Key over and over and over again in not only Think and Grow Rich, but he even has a book called The Master Key to Success. And he says he was a Mason. There may not have been evidence for that. And then, of course, here with Murphy with the power of the subconscious mind. So I just wanted to bring a little continuum there, because to me, once like that, to me is just a nod to the history of this information that came to Murphy. And then right in the intro, he pays homage to James Allen for As a Man Thinketh, and except he says, in his subconscious mind, so shall he be, kind of thing. What I liked is he said that the purpose of this book is to explain the fundamental truths and universal truths in a simple fashion and simple language and things like that. So I really like that. And that gives us the power to free ourselves from mental and physical bondage. And of course, I think about Bob Marley and emancipate ourselves from mental slavery and all that good stuff. Personal healing is the most convincing evidence of the power of our subconscious mind. So those of us that have had those experiences, or once you have an experience like that, that's really, because you could read books up and down all day, watch videos, blah, blah, but that concept of once you have a personal experience, then you know it within yourself to be true. Just for my own experience, I spent a lot of time in my early years out here, being a destitute, solo, single parent. And once you have the experience of knowing that there's always food on the table, there's always a roof over your head, right? And that you're always provided for. Once you kind of have that experience, it changes the way that you walk through life. I like that he says we should pray scientifically, right? And for a scientific purpose. And the way that he talks about that, prayer is a harmonious interaction between the conscious and the subconscious, and that we can tap into the storehouse, the infinite storehouse. I think like cosmic consciousness, I think that kind of Jungian collective consciousness. I think about the Akashic records, for those of you who know that. He says we have a tendency to wait until there's trouble to pray, right? That concept of the deathbed prayer or whatever that is, right? And that we should make it a part of our daily lives and not just have it be this, oh God, give me this, or oh God, fix this, or whatever it is that we have a tendency to do. And he talks about how, and he wants to explain why we often get the opposite of what we want, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with how we pray, how we ask for things, right? And we've talked about this in terms of law of attraction, that, if you focus on the wanting, then you're in the place of wanting and you're not in the place of having, right? And I just think that's
Right.
cool. John, you got
Well,
something?
he
to
talked
add?
about that with the tense, right? When you pray, believing you have received, you shall receive. So just looking at the use of tense in that statement, I think was profound. But and also, Stuart, as you're talking about this stuff, he's bringing up Hermes and the great secret, as within so without, and then here's Zoroaster and Lao Tzu and all these other guys, and it's the same, as in heaven so on earth, right? It's the same truth over and over and over again. So for me, like not getting hung up on this or that denomination or whatever, and just seeing this, as you mentioned, with like a healing or something, seeing this show up in me. You mentioned you walk differently, right? That's it right there. It's no longer I hope and I want for this. It is, I am, right? And it's being delivered right on schedule. And I don't have to like take more thought on this. Now it's time for me to take action. What did he say in the book? All your frustration is due to unfulfilled desire. So where is that? That is intention versus counterintention. That is, here's my postulate, here's what I want, and here's all the reasons I don't think I'm going to get it. Is that my prayer? Well, what do I most deeply believe?
Well, and then you're right.
Right. I get to be right. Yeah.
No, man, I know that you were catching that. As soon as he said they opened the tomb of Hermes, I was like, yes, I knew that, I knew this guy was, a hermeticist and studied the ancient hermetic principles and things like that. And yeah, he gives a big nod to that and talks about the principle of correspondence, right? As above, so below, as within, so without, and all these things, right? And so, yes, and he keeps talking about universal truths and universal verities and things like that. I thought that was very cool. In chapter 1, right, Bob, he says right there, the gold mine, right? Like the opening sentence. And immediately I thought of the 3 feet from gold metaphor. And I think last week I dropped the acres of diamonds, which is kind of a similar concept. We're all sitting on acres of diamonds. The 2 types of people, the magnetized and the demagnetized, the confident people and the fearful people. And then later he talks about the 2 sailors and how suggestion works, how heterosuggestion works on one but not on the other, because one is in a place of fear and the other one is just in his power and self-confident. And he's like, what do you mean I'm seasick? I'm not. And he just laughs. Whereas the other guy's like, oh yeah, maybe I am. Oh, am I seasick or whatever it is? I thought that was great. The subconscious reveals to us everything that we need to know at every moment in time. We need not acquire it as we already possess it. I thought that was very cool. Then he drops another one. He says that this is the master, the hidden power of the subconscious is the master secret of the ages. And this to me is a nod to Manly P. Hall, who again is a 33rd degree Mason, who wrote something called the Secret Teachings of All the Ages, which is like a classic book on all this stuff. The solution to every problem, there's a solution to every problem, there's a cause for every effect. The certainty of our results is in the exact proportion. This reminded me of Earl Nightingale. The certainty of our results is in exact proportion to our knowledge and application of these principles, right? So you could be like, oh, well, it's not working for me or whatever. Well, it has a lot to do with, where we're at in this journey and where we're at in this process and how we understand things and how we apply these things in our lives. Whatsoever we impress on our subconscious is expressed on I love this, on the screen of space as condition. Thought that was very cool. Kind of plays into like the holographic nature of the universe as well. He talks about cooperating with nature, and the law of mind is the law of belief. Stop believing in false beliefs, believe in eternal verities. Talks about the duality of mind, the objective and the subjective, the conscious and the subconscious. And then he says the male and the female. And Missy, I don't know if you caught this, but this also is to me a reference, because I don't know if you know, but Goddard and Murphy both were students of Abdullah, right? And so this concept of the male and the female aspects of creation is really prevalent in a lot of Neville's work as well. And then later, I don't know if you caught this as well, in maybe the third chapter, he talks about the religious man, the mystery religious man who taught me this or that. And I'm almost positive he's talking about Abdullah, his mentor and his teacher there. He drops the garden metaphor about, the seeds that we sow, and as you sow, you shall reap, and that the mind, the subconscious mind doesn't care, it's just soil, and whatever you plant in it is going to grow, whether it's good seeds or bad seeds, or good thoughts or bad thoughts. And, he says that we can actually take charge and control our thoughts to bring about desired conditions, to change the external, which is the effects or the conditions, right? Then we have to change the cause, which is our thoughts, right? And this echoes everything that we're learning in all these other books. He said something about that we can free ourselves from the law of averages. Did you catch that, John? Did you catch?
Yeah, like that was one of the benefits of applying this, is that you get to essentially transcend the law of averages. I thought that was
heard that term.
Yeah.
I never heard that term. I looked it up, and it's this it's a fallacy. They call it the gambler's fallacy, that, if the roulette wheel lands on red so many times, then, oh yeah, it's got to land on black, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. Or if you flip the coin 3 times and it lands on heads, then you're like, oh, well, it's got to land on tails, but not necessarily, kind of thing.
Well, how do you explain, the Midas touch, right? Why do some people excel? And, one of the other books I'm reading right now is Art of the Deal. And in that book, right, here is this very competent guy who was unknown in his 20s, going around the biggest city in the United States, making deals. Nobody even knew who he was, right? And the next thing you know, here's like the most beautiful condos, and now, of course, everybody knows. So how does that, like, what was internal, what was inside this guy to like have the balls to just go and like, I'm gonna go build a city now. Holy crap, right? I'm gonna make deals with the old money people, and they don't even know who I am, but here I come. And the willingness to put himself out like that.
That's Queens, baby, Queens.
Well, yeah, it started in Queens, right, with his father, right? We're talking about Donald Trump, right? And so here's, was it Frank or Fred? His father's name, Fred, I think, right? So they're doing like, little apartment buildings, 3-story, whatever. And now he's going to hit Manhattan, and like, boom. So, but he attributed a lot of that to like instincts and just loving, in other words, not being afraid of a deal, risking and not being so damn concerned with it, like just going for it, just do it, like Bob mentioned. So for me, that the perspective on that, again, for me, it comes back to my intention, and not thwarting my own intention with counter intention, not diminishing my own postulate with counter postulates, not being so damn conflicted all the time, which I've been so often. And if that's your prayer, yes, I want, but, right, what seed am I sowing here? I plant the seed, I pull it out. I plant the seed, I pull it out. What are we doing? What? So terribly frustrating, I think, when I just don't know, what am I asking for here? Anyway, back to you.
Well, I'll flip it to Bob. I got a couple more things I want to add if it's cool, but I want to hear what Bob has to say.
It's me. You go. Keep going. Keep going.
No, please.
Well, I just wanted to respond to John when he said, what does this guy have in him? Maybe it's what he didn't have in him. Maybe he didn't have some of this poison that we pick up from childhood, from, I think you've used well-meaning people who don't know what they're planting. And some people are more sensitive. Some soil is more fertile to the negative, you know what I mean? And he also was a little Patton-esque, Donald Trump. He has a lot of that, it's like one giant, forward, 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 doesn't know retreat. And so that was basically, I just wanted to answer that because I had a lot of that stuff put into me, and I was fear-based up until about 10 minutes ago. I mean, pretty much that's what I'm working through, being fear-based. Let's do it like that. Because I'm not trying, I'm doing it, but I fail every day. And if I can just throw in one thing, I can't help myself. I got to talk about Neville Goddard every time. If you do something that's not in accord with what you want during the day, if you slip up, I slipped up, everybody slips up. There is the law of revision. And when you go to bed at night, you can undo what you did in your subconscious, through your subconscious. And when you get the skill of it, it is as though it never happened. And it's almost like changing history. So just if there's something that you did that, oh no, I've ruined it. No, you haven't ruined it. The law of revision, look it up to Neville Goddard, and you can undo any wrong thought that you've had. So it does go along with what he just doesn't say it the way Neville Goddard says it, but it's very important to keep in mind.
The pruning shears of revision.
Yes.
Right. And I love that. I use that all the time, or at least when I feel like
we're gonna have to do a Neville book because Missy just keeps bringing him up. So we're gonna have to
bring him here. We're gonna.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Any other thoughts, Stuart, before we end?
Yeah, I mean, I know we got a couple minutes here, but I did want to say a couple more things because I thought what I thought was cool about chapter 2, he talks about what we habitually think, right? Not only is that kind of a nod or a pre-nod to James Clear, but this concept of habitual thoughts, right? Because we all have passing, fleeting thoughts and ideas, but as Emmett Fox talks about in the mental diet and all these things, it's what we entertain. Even Murphy says this several times. It's the thoughts that we entertain, not the things that just kind of come and go, but the things that we give energy and prominence to, right? And so it's these things that we habitually think is what sinks down into our subconscious. The fleeting negative thought that you swat away or whatever doesn't necessarily sink in as much as the things that we constantly tell ourselves. Missy, you just said something about some soil is more receptive to bad seeds. I would say that our mind, we talked about this before, there's something called the negativity bias, and that most people, most of the thoughts that run through our heads, their heads, right? I won't include us here in that. Most of the thoughts that, not you, most of the thoughts that run through other people's heads tend to be negative, and that's why again, good or bad, those things are going to take seed. And that's why one of the coolest things about this book is he talks about the conscious mind is the watchman at the gate, right? And that it's the job of your conscious mind to protect the subconscious from negative thoughts, negative impressions, bad seeds, whatever that is, right? I like how he talks about how the conscious mind commands the subconscious, and that the subconscious is subjective, right? It's the subject of, right? The master and the subject, or whatever it is. And that, the subjective mind just follows the orders, right? But that he tells us to speak with authority to our subconscious, with confidence, and to command our subconscious. And then there was, let's see, a couple things about the final chapter. And what I thought was cool is he says the subconscious mind places us in touch with omnipotence, right? And that's our connection, to cosmic consciousness or God or infinite intelligence, or whatever that is for us. Then he drops some interesting things that have been in some of the other books, right? Dorothea Brandt also talked about Esdale and the mental anesthesia, and those studies in the 1800s in India where he hypnotized people and then performed surgery on them. They felt no pain. They had no no infection, things like that. Then he drops about ESP and clairvoyance and clairaudience. And to me, that was a nod to the Duke experiments that we had talked about as well with J.B. Rhine, and who coined the term extrasensory perception, things like that. The subconscious transcends the intellect. And then he talks about the tomb of Hermes and all that stuff. He talks about William James, also who Dorothea Brandt had talked about, who was called the father of American psychology, who in 1896 wrote The Will to Believe, and it was really one of the first, thoughts or things treatises. And he specifically talks about that we can believe in things even without evidence that they are true. And I think that that's what this concept of impressing on our subconscious is all about. So I know we're a minute over, but thank you, John. Great book. I'm a big fan of Murphy here, so I'm looking forward to the next few chapters.
Yeah, me too. And you know what? There's some great affirmations, if you will. I've gotten some from this book that I still use to this day. So in these next few chapters we're going to be going through, where he is going to move from like healings into like wealth creation, which is one of the main reasons that I was looking at this book. I'm blessed with great health. And at the time when I first started reading it, I was looking to get into the flow. All right. So you talked here about balancing flows, right? You must, have the inflow and the outgo, in balance. He mentioned that in the book as well. He's going to show us more on how to do that in these subsequent chapters. So we got 4 more weeks on this book, and then we're going to be coming into the Christmas holiday. So read 4 more chapters, everybody, and be back here next week with bells on, because we're just getting started with Joe Murphy, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, brought to you by the paying members of the JL Success Mastermind. Go to jlsuccessmastermind.com and grab a membership if you don't already have one. Stuart, everyone, thank you for your take on all this. So good to see, Ivier here all the way from the United Kingdom. And those of you who didn't share, come back next week with some ideas on how this stuff applies into your, into common hours, into common life, right? So that's what we're looking to do, is put this stuff to use. All right, my friends,